Hello everyone, this is Jacob Popio, the producer of the Apex. In this episode, we are doing another new segment of the Disruptor. A disruptor means you're willing to drastically alter or change the structure of something. Today, Jan is sitting down with Jason Storch and Shawaiz Bhatti. They discuss different questions like, how do I even start thinking about using data in my decisions? Or, why is data being called the new oil? If you want to support us, there are 3 ways to do so. One is to donate to our cause at www.patreon.com/the Apex Podcast. Second, visit our merch line that is proudly partnered with Envision Clothing Company at envisionclothingcompany.com. The final one is completely free. All we ask is if you learn something from this episode or know someone that needs to hear our message, share it with them. Please subscribe and hope this pushes you toward your apex.
All right, ready to go?
Yep.
What is going on, Apex Chasers? You are on another episode of the Apex Podcast live stream style. I am here with the second episode of our Disruptor series with 2 new faces. The first episode, you guys remember Justin and John. There are 2 sales guys that are passionate about user experience design. They're passionate about design thinking, and they showed us a whole bunch of different ways to approach sales from a different mindset. So the 2 gentlemen that I have in the stream with me today are going to help us look at design thinking, user experience, and sales and other areas, but in the context of data, research, and how to make decisions without just guessing. So I'm super amped to have both of them here. I will go ahead and allow the gentleman to this side. Man, I did that on the last episode too. Over here, Mr. Jason Storch, go ahead and introduce yourself. Jason, where are you from? What do you do?
Hello, everyone. Like Jan said, my name is Jason Storch. I have grown up in the Canton area, but currently reside in Navarre.
Barely.
With my beautiful wife, Megan. I got 2 boys, Jace and Jude. And for a living, I am process improvement and data analytics.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the show. Thank you for your time, my friend. Jason and I have been friends kind of by happenstance. I actually met his wife first because I worked with her at the hospital. And then I was at a Christmas party and went up to the bar to order a drink. Jason heard my last name. Turns out his best friend married my cousin. And that is the story of Canton South. Like the town is like this big. And next thing you know, we're talking entrepreneurship. And Jason, what happened the first night that me, you, and Popia went out at Canton Brewing Company? What did you have to go out and take home with you? You bought something at Walmart.
Yeah, so these guys could not let me go home and feel satisfied with the evening unless I stopped and bought a whiteboard. But not only buy a whiteboard, I had to use a whiteboard and show proof of that. So it was my first mission. I think I passed. What do you think?
Yeah, well, you're sitting in the chair, my friend. So right. I think that you've proven yourself pretty well over the last, oh man, has it even been a year yet? Well, this was just, we're coming up on our year anniversary. I'm so proud. And then down below, we have the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Shawaiz Bhatti, Sway Z, one of my right hands when it comes to user experience and design. Shawaiz, you may recognize him from an episode of the Apex Podcast, but my friend, welcome back to the show.
Hey man, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
So why don't you tell the audience, if they haven't listened to your amazing episode, first of all, if you haven't listened to it, you should go back and listen to it. We'll make sure that we tag it in the comments. But why don't you reintroduce yourself to everybody?
Yeah, so obviously my name is Shawaiz Bhatti. I grew up in the Canton area. Did all my schooling here, went to Walsh University.
Roll Cavs.
Yeah, go Cavs. Then after college, I moved away from home for the first time into Arizona State University. And I am now finishing a master's degree in human systems engineering. And I am back working for Apex Communications Network, and I'm very excited. That is
Yeah, I hear they're a pretty solid company.
Yeah,
Just
their,
the whispers in the wind, the word on the street.
their CEO is a little off his rocker, but
I'll take it.
he's a solid guy. He's a solid dude.
I'll take it. Well, thank you, my friend. So today, like I said, we're going to get started by talking about a couple of terms that I feel like we've been throwing around a little bit. And I'm sure that you guys haven't really 100%, and I'm pointing at the audience, not y'all, like 100% don't understand some of the stuff that we're talking about when we say things like user experience design or human systems engineering or human factors. So we're going to start by allowing Shawaiz to really explain what that is, because Shawaiz is really the gentleman that brings all of that experience to our team. He's fondly kind of looked at as like the glue of our organization right now, because he's kind of holding people together and keeping us focused on basing our decisions off of quantitative and qualitative data. So, Shawaiz, why don't you go ahead and just talk about your degree at Arizona State and what all that entailed? What did you work on while you were there?
Sure. I'll try to keep this brief. But human systems engineering is really human factors psychology. So um, I look at user experience as sort of a subset of human factors. Because under human factors, besides user experience, there's also ergonomics. Um, so I worked a little bit in uh, the user experience side of things. My other research was looking at the relationship between intelligent automation and humans within the team environment, essentially. Um, so the user experience work I did a little bit was for the simulation that scientists basically developed to educate people about water,
Mm.
but the simulation was sort of atrocious. So we overhauled it. I'm trying to grant to actually do some research on it. Um, but that that was one project, and then another project I did was actually for Hyundai. It was we worked on the prototype that they had for their infotainment system. So we experienced research and design
Mm. Those, yeah, and those are both like such in-depth topics. Like, I understand what you meant when you said I'm going to try to keep this brief, right? Because those are very, I mean, we could spend an entire probably 5 episode segment series on just that, if
that.
not more,
Yeah,
right? This is really, really deep stuff from what I understand. And so there's definitely going to be times when, you guys are talking and I'm going to be like, hey, maybe we explain that, mostly I'm going to pretend like it's for the audience, but it's really probably for me, so that we can make sure that everybody's on the same page. So, Jason, when we first met, I kind of expected data was literally just, CSV files. It was numbers, commas, it was all this other type of stuff. But you showed me an entirely new world when it comes to data analysis, to the point where, I had you do some work for the nonprofit that I'm on the board for, and just completely rock their socks off when it comes to their ability to use their data. And so that's what I really kind of want you to hit on is, why is it so important for people to be able to not only collect their data, but actually use it?
Right. Honestly, when it comes to data, most people take it for face value, hoping that people have done their due diligence in presenting it, and unfortunately, that's not the case. Especially, you'll find in a lot of businesses, they have the data, but they don't know what to do with it. And so that was really what I found, especially with the nonprofit that you mentioned, is the data was there, but it was messy. You had to clean it up and make it useful. So really, the work I did was just scratching the surface and turning it into something that they can use to make decisions with. And as either a business owner or even a consumer, we need to remember that data it drives every decision you make. And we find that without getting political, but we have found that it can even mean life or death in instances like the coronavirus. You know, the data that we're receiving has been so muddied, people don't trust it. So if you're running a business and you want to make a multi-million-dollar decision, you have to make sure that the data is accurate and you know what you're looking at.
And the thing is that you don't have to be that multi-million-dollar business. Yeah. If our entire
Absolutely.
mission here is empowering that small business owner to not have to pay a crazy amount of money anytime they want something done, or they feel like they're trying to make decisions with their business based off of gut intuition or what a company that they're working with tells them, rather than working with them to kind of show them, like you said, be able to use the data and interpret it well. Shway's actually really kind of hit home with me about a month ago with a statement that he made, because I used the word manipulate when I talked about a data set. And I thought that he was going to backhand me to Mars when, I said that word. But, it's not about cherry picking data. It's not about doing stuff. You have to pull the data in a way that it's objective, right? You're trying to figure out what the data says and make a decision based off of it, not trying to pull the data in order to make it look like what you want it to look like. So, Shwayz, why don't you talk a little bit about the importance of that when it comes to the psych world, when we're dealing with these human interactions and stuff like that? Why is it so important for a business owner to know what people are actually doing versus what they feel like they're doing?
Yeah, so this kind of goes to the UX side of things, but the basic idea is this is sort of my philosophy. Um, in the context of like what world we're living in today, and it's not enough that you just make a product that can make people's lives easier. Um, the product, it has to go beyond fulfilling some need. It has to delight the end user. It has to really display a positive, really positive experience. So the way that data can help you uh, tailor to an overall very positive, delightful user experience is by really showing you um, what your customers are engaging with. Jeff Bezos talks about this all the time because he said he wanted Amazon to be very, very focused on the customer experience. So you look at their business model. And first of all, they give you a bunch of options for just any one product. Secondly, um, they recommend other products that other people have bought while shopping for the original product. And secondly, their delivery and shipment methods are super, super fast. So all of this is looking at what it is that people are viewing, what it is that they're interested in, and looking at the way they talk and the way they speak, and looking at the reading between the lines of the language that is being spoken and understanding what problems the people experiencing on a day-to-day basis that you can, if you figure out a way to solve it, you can figure out a way to monetize it. So really to summarize it, what data helps a business do is um, provide data gives insights into problems, and if you can figure out how to solve those problems, you can make your company the best company there is, essentially. Because at the end of the day, the end user is the person that really, really matters.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going beyond just fulfilling some need and actually providing a positive experience, that's how you get repeat customers. That's how you get word of mouth recognition. That's how you
Mm-hmm.
get. That's how you build your credibility. You can scale that to an enormous level. Really, unprecedented that you can do with data nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. The amount that the depth of insight that you're able to extract is just mind-boggling, right? Um, so Jason, when it comes to data, we've had multiple conversations about something that you just mentioned a little bit earlier, people needing to do their due diligence. And there's a lot of people out there that say, yeah, like we can come in and audit this and we'll show you this and we can get your numbers green. I hear that a lot. Um, why is it more important to have somebody that's willing to hold you accountable to what the data actually is and help you lean it out or help you pivot than it is to have somebody that just shows you green numbers?
Well, if you're going in to help a company with their own data, you know, if it's one thing to have that trust to be able to, first of all, go in there and see that data. I'm hoping that if they're providing it, that they know that you're not going to go in there and manipulate it. It's their numbers. You're just making it be understandable,
Mm.
which can be difficult on the flip side if it's raw data. So it's definitely a good thing to have someone who understands what they're doing so they can walk them through it and explain it. So it's not like they're just dumping it off and you're spitting out these reports that they don't have any idea, but you're there to clean it up. You're there to summarize and make it something that they can use moving forward easily.
Yeah, like you're giving them like the Spark Notes version, like what's really actually important. And now we've had a bunch of conversations between the fires and whatever else, the shenanigans that we've had at, in your backyard over the summer about people that, we feel that, holy crap, I can't believe people are paying people for this.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm genuinely curious about that statement itself, right? There's these groups of consultants out there that'll go in, they sell almost like a Nirvana-esque dream, attempt to try to achieve it. They may not even get anywhere close, and then they get paid, or they come in and it's some crappy training that everybody's heard 1,000 times, but it's not changing anything. Now you're unique because you're both data analyst, right? And you're also Lean Six.
Right.
Now, how have those two kind of married together when you've seen the ability to try to affect an organization by using quantitative and qualitative data to lean out their processes?
Right. So it goes back to kind of what I mentioned earlier, where data drives all your decisions. So you're not going to know what decisions to make unless you follow the data. So if I'm looking at numbers, that will lead me towards being able to implement process improvement, which would ultimately help my business grow. But it boils down to, if you're looking at things like that, it comes down to honesty too. So I'm not going to make a decision just because I want to get your business. It has to make sense. The proof's in the pudding. This is what I would recommend, and this is why. And this is how I arrived at that decision. So I think being able to understand what you're looking at and being able to explain it simply is also how you can tie the two together. Uh, you're not going to be able to improve your business any other way.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, a term that's I've heard being thrown around is data is the new oil. Shawaiz, you've told that to me, dude. I don't even know how many hundreds of times in the last month. Just consistently reminding us that we're on the right track by utilizing things like machine learning and other avenues, data sets that we're currently using to help these businesses make accurate decisions. Why do you believe, and Jason, I'm coming to you next, but Shawaiz, why do you believe that data is the new oil, quote unquote?
Yeah, so um, oil used to be the most valuable resource. The history of it, John D. Rockefeller was, I believe, the first billionaire in the United States, maybe even the world, something like that, right? It was because of oil. It was super, super valuable. But like I said, we're moving into this new era. We've already moved into this new era where you can't just make something. You have to consider the end user and how they're going to use that product, how they're going to view it, what pain points are they going to have. So, and all that's all data. What the pain points are, um, the, the the end user's initial thoughts. They first see it, they first use it, their thoughts. You know, as they use it, as they gain more experience with your product, all of that is data. So you're trying to we live in this very hyper competitive environment where being an entrepreneur is easier than it's ever been. Starting a company is easier than it's ever been. How are you standing out? How do you compete? It seems so obvious. It's like such a cliche, but it's like you have to just put out the best product there is. So it's not enough for it to be, usable. It has to be, accepted by a whole multitude of people. And the way you get to that level is by understanding what it is that you want. So that's why we do usability tests. That's why we build personas and we build all these prototypes, wireframe, all of these things, so that we can figure out, what's wrong with the original design of a product or a service, and go through the reiteration phase. That's really what the power of data is. It allows you to have a starting point, allows you to figure out what the problems are, go back, address it, make it better, and then keep going through that phase. It's a lot like you writing a book. The first draft of a book is first draft of anything that you write is horrible.
Yeah, atrocious.
Completely atrocious. But then you show it to somebody, and that's awful, right? Because you don't want to be judged, but you show it to somebody and they give you feedback, right? That's data. That feedback that someone gives you on your writing, that is data. It's a lot.
Yep.
Big thing for UX research. People providing that as much feedback as possible.
Yeah, on John and Justin's episode, actually, just before like your guys' thing, I was talking to John and I was like, you know what, when you're first in a startup, because we were talking about how entrepreneurs can use design thinking. And I was like, you have access to all of this data in gas station clerks, Starbucks baristas, the cashier at Giant Eagle, whoever, because they all offer feedback. And so if you can go and pitch your business to a gas station clerk and keep their attention for 30 seconds to a minute, and they're like dead focused on what you're doing, you probably have got a pretty decent pitch nailed down, because most of the time the gas station clerk doesn't give a crap, unless it's Speedy Foods in Canton local. Then, I walk in and they're like, hey, how's it going? I haven't seen you in a while. How's your mom? Because my hometown is that big. But any other time, you have to really fight to hold their attention, but they do offer feedback, and you can take that and use it to mold your next iteration. So is there anything that you want to finish up on before I go to Jason?
I'm saying any good company does that iteration process.
Yeah. It should be hopefully that's a standard process at this point. I've been on a couple of calls, and it's genuinely concerning that that's not the standard at this point. So I'm hoping that we can really, really try to raise that tide and help as many people as possible get to a place where they're able to make insightful decisions. So Jason, I'm going to kind of give you the floor on the data and oil question, but then kind of split it in half, right? Because I want to know why data is the new oil in your opinion. But then also, if you were to go into a business and they had absolutely no idea what they were doing, where would you start, right? Like educating them, whatever else. We can kind of keep that in the back of your head. But first off, let's just see why is data more valuable than John D. Rockefeller's treasure?
All right. So far in this episode, we've talked about how we can use data, but we haven't talked about how we're collecting data, so to speak. So the new oil question would be, to me, I'm going to use a movie quote from Ready Player One, but it's first to the key, first to the egg.
Yeah.
So if you can find data that hasn't been collected yet, guess who's going to be striking rich, so to speak.
Right.
And that's what we're finding in this new era of data, is that it's being collected without you even knowing it. There's conversations I've had, and I'm sure my phone later this evening will pop up something either in my news feed or on Amazon of what we discussed tonight, and it'll relate some way or another in that realm. So they're listening, which is, I think that's the world we live in. So I think that is where we're at with the oil, is in being able to collect data that hasn't been collected before, and then being able to use that to make decisions. But
Yeah. And that point right there, and we'll get into the second half of the question. I know I'm like cutting in on you guys, but you guys are saying so much good stuff. That point right there, right? You're finding data that hasn't been collected yet. That is why it's important to have a creative team looking at your stuff, because you have somebody like Shawaiz Bhatti that has studied how people interact with different things. You've got, and I'll just use myself as an example, somebody that has been in the military, has worked contracting, has worked on a farm, has worked as an ICU nurse, and now has been in the rat race in the marketing world for the last 4 years, analyzing the gaps. Where can we try to collect data in your company that you're not already doing to try to help you make better decisions? That's why we have 3 tiers, right? We start with educate, and that's where we're pulling the data they already have, cleaning it up and teaching them about it. But then phase 2 and phase 3 are innovate and automate. So you get to that phase 2 and you're really trying to innovate. But sometimes when you own the business yourself, I'm experiencing this right now. There's a gentleman that's kind enough to be mentoring me that is seeing gaps in Apex and helping me fill them. But that's the benefit of having a team that's dedicated to creative action, innovation, and data to come in and help you figure that stuff out. So if we were going to go in and try to help somebody figure out where to start, Jason, where would we start?
Me personally, I would just ask questions until you stumble upon an area in which you're able to help them. And that's the moment when you're able to release the information that you hold of value for them. And it'll click. I feel like it'll be very, like you had mentioned earlier about relationships, it'll be very organic with that mentoring, if you want to call it that, of coming in and helping them. You just ask the right questions, and eventually you'll find where they're hung up and where you can help them.
Right. Now, Shawaiz, if it's that's the approach, right? And we're asking different questions and everything like that. What are some questions that we might be able to ask a business owner that would help us figure out that pathway to finding success for them?
So I think one of the things that we need to do is really ask them, like, what exactly is the problem they want to solve, right? So I think one of the things that are helpful with is outreach, getting your business out there. This is kind of what we do here at Apex. Getting the business sort of online and social media, and creating original organic content that helps people to want to engage with that business online. So I think the questions that we kind of have to ask are, so what are some problems that you want to do with your business? What are some of the solutions that you've tried? And then from there, questions that give you insight into how these businesses are engaging with the customer. I think those are also very, very important questions, because that's where you can do a lot of educating. That's where I think that's what opens the door to educating people because you got to remember sometimes people feel like they already have the answer, but they don't know how to do what needs to be done. So that can lead to a mismatch because uh, they think they know what the answer is. They just don't know how to do it. They don't want you to tell them what the answer is.
Oh my God, yeah. Dude, that's like me with every single Excel sheet I've tried to build ever. I just cuss at it and then give it to Jason.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, hey, just a real quick question for Shawaiz down there. What if we did know the answer? How would we handle that without asking questions?
Well, you got to be careful with that as well because what would it look like if you just went into a business? I know what problem you're having, and I know how to fix it.
Mm,
You know what I mean? That
right.
can that can make you look kind of sketchy to that
Mhm.
person. You know what I mean?
Unless you have a story you
I
could relate to. Hey, I helped solve this problem. It looked identical to this, and then show an example.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good move. Look
That
at
is,
you guys challenging each other. I'm so proud.
well, again, you got to remember, even you might have the answer, but you gotta have what's the word I'm blinking? You got to be tactful how you go about it, because you don't want to seem like like an all-knowing type person
Mm,
there
true.
with your ego, because people aren't going to take too kindly to that. You might have the answer, you might be
Yeah.
right, but that's not all that matters.
They're going to kick open the saloon doors and go, there ain't room enough in here for the two of us.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to start a duel at high noon.
Right.
And again, and another crazy thing is
Another
they might
Swayze thing.
they might not care. Like you
Oh,
haven't
yeah.
you have an answer to a problem that the business is experiencing, but does the business care about that problem?
Mm-hmm. It's where a lot of people get hung up on market fit when they're developing products. We talked about that on the first episode of the Disruptor. We talked. John Coons kind of brought up a little bit about how market fit is so important because it's not just whether you're solving a problem or it's some. It has to be something that the consumer actually wants or the business actually wants, and that's where the only way you're going to find out is going out there and going at iteration after iteration after iteration of figuring out, is this what you actually want? Yeah. Crickets. So I'm going to transition here a little bit because there's this interesting term that I'm seeing thrown around in the market right now, right? Shwayz, you know how psychotic I can be with research sometimes because I send him texts at like 2:00 in the morning. I'm like, hey, I just found this article. You should read it. He's like, go to bed. You're crazy. And although last night he was up researching stuff until the wee hours of the morning. So I guess we're both even there. Um, so there's this term called the experience-based economy, right? And traditionally, the experience-based economy has been linked with places like Disney, right? That's an experience. But there's an interesting stat, and since we're talking about data, that 78% of a pool that they interviewed out of the millennial generation would rather spend their money on an experience over something that just has brand value. They would rather go and spend a bunch of money to go to Disney World than buy a car, right? Which is absolutely bonkers. So the auto industry is doing what? They're creating an experience on the inside of those vehicles. The tech, the smoothness of the leather, all of the ergonomics of the inside. And I know Shwayz is over there like, yes, he's talking about design. Like these are all things that industries are doing to adapt to living in an experience-based economy. And that's why we here at Apex chose to really make our mantra turning your brand into an experience. because it's going to do nothing but continue to get more and more in depth as the millennials continue to get older and Gen Zs come up into the rat race, right? But we'll just I kind of want to wrap up the episode on that. This nap is driving me absolutely insane. We'll wrap up the episode on that idea of this experience-based economy. I'm going to Mr. Miyagi this thing with some chopsticks. So I'll just turn it over so that I can try to figure out where these bad boys are coming from. But Jason, why don't we start with you? When you think of an experience-based economy, why do you think that we're in a place where we're so focused on experiences? And why is it so important for a business to really understand what its experience is?
I would say as a society, for the most part, as a whole, people just want to feel good. So you're going to remember things that make you feel good for long periods of time. And I feel like a lot of times businesses are leaning towards, family-based experiences. So they're not just tapping into you, they're tapping into everyone you love, which is even more powerful. So, but how do you know what leather to choose? How do you know what stereo to put into a car, right? That all boils down to data. So they are understanding on a scale what the majority like. What do they enjoy? What's going to make them talk about us, even though we didn't say anything to them or ask them any question? So it's almost like a subliminal experience. Wow, that was wonderful. I'm going to talk about it.
Right.
So I feel like that it just opens doors for all businesses to tap into that. And I feel like we're literally at the beginning of it because, like you said, Disney, we had to go to a park to experience that. Well, now you can have an experience anywhere.
Yeah.
Even at your home in some cases.
Yeah, well, and COVID really shifted that paradigm, right? People are having experiences in their home with coworkers.
Right.
Coworkers are now eating cereal together in the morning while they're in a morning meeting, or like somebody is cooking breakfast holding a child while they're giving a conference call. And that experience of merging the home life with the work life, I think has caused a lot more like intimate relationships. Like when we all go back to work after this is all over, people are going to have a fundamentally different view of who their coworkers are. Now, not all businesses were like that, obviously, right? Mostly the ones that had remote work capabilities were going to be like that, but it is going to cause a fundamental shift, no matter which way you look at it.
And one thing, I even noticed too, with the staying at home working, because we were forced to do that, is that we were being forced to tap into unfound happiness, so to speak. So people who had to go to the office can now work at home in the comfort of their home. That increases your levels of happiness. So now the economy is booming, and I don't know for sure, but could it be related to that?
Right. Right. Now, I definitely agree. Yeah. And so, Shawaiz, when we say experience-based economy, right? Jason's bringing up points like the economy booming and people being at home and connecting with each other and having Disney-like experiences pretty much anywhere in the world at this point. But what is your take on that whole box of shenanigans there?
Well, I really want to get back to the question you asked: is why is it important for a business to know their experiences?
Okay.
Um, uh, so this claim that I'm making, I don't know what the research is on it. I might be completely wrong about it, but I'm going to say it anyway. Risking my reputation here. I think one of the big differences between the younger generation of Gen Zs compared to the older generation of Xers is that millennials have grown up in this environment where they are used to instant gratification more so than their parents and their grandparents. We we see this with so many companies, right? Like, if like we were told when we were younger that we wouldn't have calculators in our pockets, right? And that was a saying that teachers used to say to justify kids learning the basic math facts. Well, they were wrong, because everyone has a smartphone now. And I mean, have you ever tried to take a smartphone away from a child, like a really like a baby, like a toddler? They
Freak out.
scream, they freak out, right? They completely lose it. So this idea, the idea here is that like we've created these technologies like the iPhone, right? And it has everything in it. It has like your alarm, it has the internet, it has apps for so many different things. It can be used for personal things, it can be used for professional business things. Um, it's instant, right? And like with Amazon, you order it in the morning, you're gonna have it like the next day or 2 days. Like, have you ever ordered something from Amazon? It tells you like you're gonna have to wait a week or 2 weeks. You look at that and you're like, what the hell? I have to wait a week? Because you know what I mean? We're
Right.
so we're so used to this instant gratification, and if you walk into a business and you're instantly not gratified, like you kind of don't want to go back to that business. But that's the reason why I think it's so important for businesses to have those experiences, because like someone's gonna walk into your place of business, or if your place of business is digital, they're gonna go on your website, right? Um, they're gonna look around for like a minute or like 3 or 4 minutes tops, right? And if they're not really, like delighted by your business, they're not gonna come back.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think that's why it's super important to understand what what type of experience your business provides.
Yeah, and I feel like there's even a certain standard that should be held. If you don't reach this certain standard where we're all expecting it to be, it makes you
Behind the curve.
look at that company like, what are you doing?
Yeah, you're behind the times.
This is what I expect at all times.
Right. And that's something that like Shwayze, you spent a lot of that time talking about physical space. And I'm really like, I think what we're really passionate about is my entire life, I have heard the Midwest is 10 years behind California, or, Canton, Ohio is if you're 10 years behind the curve, you're 5 years ahead of the times in Canton, Ohio. Right. I've heard that line more than once my entire life.
Yeah.
Screw that. Right. We have so many resources at our fingertips and so much education at our fingertips that it is so important to teach people how to create that experience in the digital realm. Like the brick and mortar is super important, but that extra layer, and you said it, Shwayze, right? The website, what do people see when they first get to your website? Is it mobily optimized? Does it have a call to action on it? All of these things that people are so, whether they know it or not, they are so subconsciously used to seeing those on professional sites that if you do not have them, Jason, to your point, that standard is not met and you are now looking behind the times. Right. But it's so easy to fix if you have the right eyes on it. And the thing is that you have to have a team that you can trust that will work with you over a long period of time, because you can't educate somebody like that overnight. It takes months to really get in there, to really help them understand the pulse, and I say that because I'm a nurse and I use medical references all the time, but to really understand the pulse of their business and bringing that experience home. You know, you can walk up to the plate, and if you calculate enough times where that pitcher is throwing the ball, you can hit a home run. Right. But if you go up there with no prior understanding of where that pitcher throws, and every now and then you do get a curveball and the data will come back and you're like, WTF, like, where did that come from? Right. But that happens. Those are they're extraneous. They're outside of the average data set. Do what?
Outliers.
Outliers. There we go. That works. That's the word I was looking for. That's why we give you the big bucks, Shwayze. But trying to figure out where those outliers are isn't always the best focus, right? Because you may have had one bad experience with data, but it also may have been an outlier.
We don't want to focus on outliers at all. It's
No, we want to help you turn your business into an outlier is what we want to do. We want to try to take your business and have you not have so many data set outliers and turn your business into a freaking outlier. That is, here's the standard for everybody in your business, but now you're making data driven hard results. I mean, you're driving using data, you're making decisions that are 90% accurate. You have a creative team helping you with content. You're building up your rapport. You're beating SEO. You've got SEM going on, which for those of you that don't know is search engine optimization and search engine marketing. It's basically how Google ranks you, on the, I call it the set list, right? On the Google page. But you have to be able to use all of the tools in your tool belt in order to get ahead of the game. Because if you start making those decisions, I guarantee you that your competitor that is not using that to drive their decisions, you're going to wipe the floor with them 10 out of 10 times. I'll give ourselves 9 out of 10 times just in case your competitor is some kind of like savant that can just read the future through a crystal ball. But unless they have spells and witchcraft, they're not going to be able to beat you if you're using data-driven insights.
So there's 2 points I want to make here because I think, John, you hit on them. I'm just going to touch on them briefly.
Drive them home, Swayze.
I forget what it was I was watching. It was an interview that Bill Gates was giving. He basically said, Bill Gates, that if your business is not on the internet, your business is not going to be in business for very long. And so that's the first thing. And the second thing is coming from, I guess you could say I'm educated, highly educated or something, but you don't need to go to school for this. This is not something that is so nuanced, so filled with scientific jargon and all this stuff. This is something I really believe, like if you're a serious business owner, if you're really trying to figure out how to make your business the best business that it can possibly be, you can learn all this UX data analysis stuff. It's not going to happen overnight, like you said. It's going to take months, but I think it is learnable. It's not something you need to go to school for.
No, I definitely agree. You need the person holding the torch as you're walking through the cave, but you don't need to go to school. You just need a guide is what you need. But on that note, I really think that's really the message that I wanted to try to get across, right? Is that we do have these things called UX design, and we're focused on experiences, and we're using data-driven insights, and we're trying to really portray that our entire passion as disruptors is to help people understand their data and use that to turn their brands into full-blown experiences. Because there's nothing better in my mind or something more rewarding than watching someone's eyes light up after they realize that another customer had a positive experience in their business, whether online or in person. That is an extremely gratifying feeling to watch a business owner, perk up with delight because something that we've implemented has made their lives easier or the lives of their customers easier. So with that, are there any final words between either of you guys? We can, go Jason Shawaiz or Shawaiz Jason. You guys can duke it out.
I'll just say something real quick. To go off of what you said about gratification. That's a two-way street. That giving resources and information to people and making them happy is also gratifying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As a person helping another business or individual, it's a great feeling.
Yeah. Well, I can't imagine when you actually get all of their formulas together and put it all into a nice little package, and all I have to do is click a button and I can see what I need to see rather than screaming at a CSV file.
It's all magic.
No, yeah, no. I swear that he has potions at his house or something, because I'll send him stuff that just makes absolutely no sense whatsoever, and it just comes back like,
I had a great teacher. I will say that.
Good. Well, who was your teacher?
My boy John Sanson. He showed me the ropes.
The man, the myth. Okay.
Yeah, he is the man. He basically groomed me to being able to do anything to help you guys in that aspect or that realm. So I would give him mad props, especially as being a coach or a mentor in that region.
Well, that's awesome. Good for him. It's always important to have a mentor like that.
Mhm.
So, Shawaiz, anything from you, my friend?
I was just gonna say I'm gonna blow the curtain wide open on that. They're all wizards,
Oh my god. It's like the Wizard of Oz, the man behind the curtain. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Oh my god.
You guys are actually Gandalf.
Where are you going with this?
Gandalf, you shall not pass. Oh my god.
I think where I'm going with it is I think that people who understand data are very powerful people.
Yeah, I could see Jason with a 5-foot white beard and a staff.
I cannot grow a beard. I'm sorry.
Although I'm pretty sure it's Gandalf the Grey. So anybody that watches Lord of the Rings religiously is going to cuss me out for saying he had a white beard, but I corrected it. So you guys can go jump off. No, I'm just kidding. But all right, before we dive down too many more rabbit holes, thank you guys for showing up. I appreciate your guys' time as always, especially from all the different roller coaster ups and downs and crazy crap that we've put each other through over the last, Jason's been riding with us for about a year. Shawaiz, you've been with us about a year. So thank you guys for your expertise. I know the audience appreciates it, and I'm looking forward to changing businesses' lives alongside of both of you gentlemen.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jan.
Thank you, Jan.
All right. And then for everybody in the audience, if you want any additional resources, the best thing to do is either go to chasetheapex.com or you can go follow the Apex podcast, which will also be in the link. But you can actually listen to Shwaiz's episode where we talk about his journey from getting into Walsh University, where we both graduated together, and then going to Arizona State and grabbing his degree. So I'll make sure that we post the episode link there, and make sure you go ahead and click that subscribe button so you're sure that you're never going to miss an ounce of this valuable information. So till next time, I'm Jan Almasy, and this has been another episode on the Apex Communications Network.